Hello, it's Lisa Dickey from Dickey's Cooking School, and today we are going to make a great healthy lunch, and it is sneaky mac and cheese. So what makes it sneaky is we're going to slip in some fantastic cauliflower into our mac and cheese. Now, before you put the pause button and you're like, that's damn gross, I want you to hear me out. We're gonna take about 3 or 4 florets. We're gonna put it in the blender. We're gonna add some water and we're gonna pulse it, and it's gonna make what we call cauliflower rice. Now this rice is then gonna be in turn put in our pasta dish with our cooked elbow noodles, and you won't even see it. There's gonna be so much cheese and delicious breadcrumbs. It's all gonna be there for you, delicious, and so you get a delicious lunch that has your vegetable, and it's gonna have some fiber in it because cauliflower is a great source of fiber, and then you're gonna have your protein with your cheese. So pretty nice, sneaky macaroni and cheese. So to start, I'm gonna tell you about what it means to cook your noodles. In this recipe, we're just gonna use 1 cup of elbow noodles. If you want to use a different noodle, you could. The reason why these are a good choice is because when they puff up, they're still pretty bite-sized, and so they can get really nicely coated with cheese. But you could also use penne noodles if you wanted. So when you're cooking pasta, my preferred method, and it's not the only way to do it, is to use a nice big pot of water. And you can see this water, you can see the steam. It's been on the burner for a while. And you're gonna put a good toss of salt in there, okay? You want your salt in there. Once that comes to boil, we're gonna put our macaroni noodles in there, and they're gonna take about 8 minutes to cook, okay? But as always, you wanna give them a little test, okay? Before you strain them, very carefully take take a noodle out, cool it off, and test it. It should definitely have a little bite to it. That's called al dente, and so what that means is if you actually take a bite of your pasta and you look at it, you should be able to see a white dot in the center of the noodle, and that means that it still has a little bit of firmness. That's what al dente means. It's got a bit of a tooth. Okay, so we're waiting for this to boil. While we're doing that, let's look at our cauliflower. So we're gonna get our florets off. So just when you're looking at a cauliflower, you wanna get rid of these outside leaves. And once you get rid of them, you have pretty easy access to your florets. So now we can just cut them from underneath. So we're just gonna take our knife and give it a little slice, and that's gonna go in there. And like I said, these are nice big florets. So let's do 4. That could be great for hummus and dip, really great vegetable. Okay, now we're gonna throw our water on top. Okay, so this has been pulsed. You've got to see how it looks like little fluff. We're gonna strain it through. I'll grab the last little pieces here. And then once you strain it, you're just gonna give it a little push, okay? Because that's a lot of water in there. And there is your basically cauliflower rice. And if you think about this, you can use this in countless ways. You could slip this into spaghetti sauce. You could obviously use it in a soup. You can use a little bit or a lot, but it's a really great way to add some vegetable, and you're not feeling like, I'm gonna eat all my vegetables. If you're getting kind of tired of being super healthy, this is like, costs you nothing, okay? So we're gonna set this aside, and now that our water's boiling, we're gonna add our noodles. Here they go in. 7 minutes later, we're gonna make our sauce and get ready to cook. Okay, here are our noodles. Got a nice casserole dish here. And now we're gonna add our cauliflower. And we're gonna give that a nice stir. So it's pretty nicely mixed in. And now we're gonna make our cheese sauce. Okay. So our cheese sauce is made with milk, butter, cheese, obviously, and we're using flour to thicken it. So a note about adding flour: if we add all the milk and then add the flour in and try to stir it, the flours, you're gonna maybe get lumps, which is really gross, or it's super duper gross to me to have lumps in my flour. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our cooktop on. We got a small pot here. We're gonna we're gonna start off with our butter, okay? So scoop that butter in. Once that butter melts, we're gonna add half of our milk, okay? And I'm using the same spoon because it's all going together anyway, okay? So we're gonna let that butter melt, and then we're gonna add half of the milk. So we're using 1 cup of milk, and so we're gonna add about a half a cup in. And then we're gonna add our flour, and we're gonna whisk it in really, really quickly using, believe it or not, a whisk. And that's gonna make sure we don't have any lumps. Then we're gonna add our cheese and the rest of the milk. And then we just need to add this in until all of the cheese is melted. Now, a note about the cheese. This is old cheddar. I prefer super old cheddar with a mac and cheese because it's creamy, and in the milk, and because the milk is so creamy, you want something with a little bit, I like something with a little bit more bite. You could use any cheese. You could use marbled cheese, you could use Monterey Jack, you could use a combination of that. You could use mozzarella, you could put in some Parmesan if you wanted a bit saltier, a little bit sharper. You could go any extreme you want. You could use Swiss cheese, doesn't matter, okay? You're gonna use cheese that you like to eat. That's the most important thing. Okay, now our butter is melted. We're gonna pour in some milk. And I'm gonna turn up the heat a bit. Then I'm gonna add in my flour, and I'm gonna really quickly whisk that all up. Okay, now I'm gonna add the rest of my milk. And now I'm gonna add my cheese. And once I add my cheese, the whisk goes away, because what's gonna happen is all the cheese is gonna get trapped into the whisk, and it's gonna be a drag. You'll just lose it, okay? So we're gonna add that all in. To this, you could add, it's an option, you could add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard if you like that. It just gives a little teeny bit of flavor. You don't have to. I'm just gonna keep stirring that. I want that cheese to melt. And then here we've got a pinch of salt, pinch of pepper. We're gonna add that in. Whoa, I'm really splashy. So as long as you see the cheese in pieces, we don't want it in pieces. We want it totally melted. So now a note about this. If you're thinking about this, oh, I want to make this for lunch and take it to school. This is a make it before, you make it the night before, okay? If you try to make this the morning before you go to school, that's a lot going on, unless, I don't know, do you get up at 5 in the morning? If you get up at 5 in the morning and your parents are really happy with that, then you do that. But otherwise, I'm gonna say you're gonna do this the night before, or better yet, make it for dinner and then bring it for lunch the next day. Just heat it in the morning and put it in a thermos, or if you're lucky enough to have a microwave at school, put it in a microwave container and then microwave it there. Okay, so we are almost there. Our beautiful cheese sauce. That is all melted. Okay, so that is gonna go all into here. We're gonna get all that cheese. Get it all off the bottom of the pan. That's delicious cheese sauce. And then when it's in the pan like this, we're gonna give it a nice stir just to make sure it's totally coated. Like that. And then we're almost there. We have a preheated oven at 325. Now, the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a delicious little crust for the top. So we're gonna take this frying pan here. We're gonna take our butter, 2 tablespoons again. We're gonna melt that up, and we're gonna add to that breadcrumbs. So this is 3/4 of a cup. These are Italian breadcrumbs, so they have Italian seasoning to that. You could also use panko crumbs. Are delicious. They're really crunchy and they have a nice flavor. The butter just gives it a little bit of a bind, and frankly, butter, I'm always down with adding a little bit more butter to pretty much anything. Okay, so we're gonna let that melt, and then we're gonna add our breadcrumbs and make a little bit of a crumble. Think about if you can imagine making a pie crust with graham cracker crumbs and butter. That's basically what we're gonna do. We're gonna sprinkle that all on top. We're gonna put that in the oven for about 30 minutes till it gets nice and crispy on top. And we're gonna top it with more cheese, because more cheese is more cheese. Delicious, cheesy. And then that's another half cup of cheese for the top. And then we're gonna bake it for about 30 minutes until it's a nice crispy crust on top. And that is our delicious, sneaky mac and cheese. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. Okay, so I've melted my butter, and then I just poured in 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs, and I'm just giving it a little stir around. And you can see it's like a nice buttery, crumbly mix, okay? I'm gonna top this with cheese. And then the breadcrumbs, I don't know if you can see, I actually put breadcrumbs in first because I was jumping the gun, but that's okay. Breadcrumbs on breadcrumbs, and breadcrumbs and cheese is good. So it's melted butter. I threw the breadcrumbs in. Just give it a little toss until it's pretty much even. And then we're just gonna sprinkle this on top. And that is sneaky mac and cheese, comfort food at its best. We've got protein from the milk, we've got protein from the cheese, we've got carbs, which are yummo, and we've got a lot of vegetables that are just sneaked in and nobody is the wiser. Ooh, I wish you could smell this. Sneaky mac and cheese. Look at that beautiful crust on top. It's hot, obviously, got my gloves just from the oven. Let's take a peek. Get some of that crust. And I'll pick some up. And it's gonna be hot, but I'm gonna have a little bit just to show you. It's sneaky, but still good. Delish.